Alright, so I've just finished loading it up for the dyno tomorrow. So she's all loaded up. Tomorrow morning I'm taking it into town to chuck it on the dyno for pretty much just a base test. I'm doing a base test to just to see what power it makes with the stock, because it's currently running the stock ECU, stock injectors, everything stock on it, but it's got a fuel pump and it's had the single turbo conversion and the plenum. So I thought it'd be nice to do just a base tune, or not a tune, just a base dyno run to see if what I've done has actually made any power whatsoever, or if it was a complete waste of time, I suppose. So we'll get this sorted, then I'll come back, I'll strip the motor down, I'll put the new Myvic heads on that I've got, then I'll wire in the link ECU. I've just ordered a new clutch and some bigger injectors, so I'll throw those in, and then she'll be going back to the dyno for proper tuning, and we should hopefully see what sort of gains that we make. The wastegate in it is about 15 psi, I think it's 14 psi, 14 point something psi, so it'll be interesting just to see if we hit anything like boost cut or anything like that on the factory ECU. I've driven it a couple of times and it doesn't seem to, it seems to go really well, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of power it makes. So I'll just finish loading it up, finish toning it down, and then that will be it for the night. Alright, so it's the next day after the dyno. We had a pretty good day on the dyno. As far as I'm concerned, any day where you can drive your car back onto the trailer afterwards is a pretty successful trip. Everything went pretty good. We had a couple of issues with speed cut, and I'll show a quick clip up of that now. It's pretty violent when it hit it, as you'll see from the video, but once we just pretty much just unplugged the speedo drive, and that solved that problem. So she made 264 kilowatts at all four wheels, or 352 horsepower at all four wheels, or based on rough calculations about 421 flywheel horsepower. Had good torque, timing was all okay, everything was okay. So for a factory ECU, factory injectors, still running the airflow meter, I think that was a really good result. The injectors weren't showing signs of maxing out, so it probably could have done a bit more. We did have a couple of issues up the very top, so we just pulled the rev limit back to 6,000 RPM. But that worked out really well. Yeah, no, it was really good. I'm extremely happy. I'll chuck some clips up of the dyno. I did find that I had an exhaust leak, which I didn't know too much of. You could just hear it in some earlier pictures, but yeah, it wasn't really until it started coming on under load, under boost, that you could hear it quite loud. It sounds a little bit like a lawnmower, so forgive that, I suppose. So, because the exhaust leak was just one of the flanges leaking that mates to the head, When I made the manifolds, I never had any way of machining them perfectly flat, which I do now. So when I start to convert it over to the Myvic heads, the manifolds and that all got to come off anyway, so I'll machine them flat. And that should eliminate that. I got some new exhaust manifold gaskets coming, so that should get rid of that. And then next time on the dyno, it should make some really good power. Well, better power, I suppose. I was pretty happy with that. Some people might not be, but I thought that was pretty good for pretty much a stock setup, just a slightly bigger turbo. Yeah, so I'm just going to get it unloaded off the trailer now and give it a clean. Perks living down a gravel road and having heavy dews, ends up covered in dust. By the time I got to the dyno, it looked bloody terrible, but it is what it is. So just giving her a bit of a wash off, just get some of the dust off. I'll leave it outside for a few hours to let the sun do its thing. Then I'll just put it in the shed and maybe start pulling it apart. It seems to be how I do things around here. There's not much point in enjoying something when you can pull it apart again. So yeah, we'll go from here and see what we can do.